welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. We are back for another chat with another international fan of the year to go through their experience on draft night. Now, yesterday you saw James Gowers, the Bears International Fan of the Year, make an appearance on the podcast. Today we have with us Detroit Lions International Fan of the Year. With me today is Ryan Fardon. Ryan, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, good to be here.
Good to have you on. And like I said with James, it was amazing seeing yourselves basically doing the UK proud. Certainly from a fan point of view, to show America, I think, and the world, just how passionate you are. And I think the same goes for a few Germany fans that were there. I remember the Panthers fan, I believe the Falcons fan was as well. And I think it's another example of the UK fan base growing, and I think doing this international fan of the year program is only going to help that. Before we do go into the actual draft night for you, we're going to take you back to where it all started for you. Now, we all know that as NFL and UK fans, we haven't got, like, in our football, you've normally got a tie, like your parents support them or you come from that area or something like that. But with UK fans in the NFL, most people don't have a family tie to America. So, out of all 32 teams in the NFL, why did you pick the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, it's a question that I'm asked a lot, especially even by Lions fans before we start getting good anyway. But it goes back to just watching the NFL when I was young, and I just used to enjoy watching it. And then, after a bit of time, I thought, you know what, it'd probably be fun to get some skin in the game and support a team. So I actually went through all the histories of the 32 teams. Um, was looking up, what I liked, what I didn't like. So a few got crossed off quite early, and it got narrowed down to, about 4 or 5 teams. Um, I went to New York a lot when I was younger, so I always thought, oh, maybe should it be the Giants and that? And I thought, no, I wanted to kind of get in at the ground level where it'd be a team that, kind of really needs your support, a team that hasn't also maybe had too much success over the years. But when it came to Detroit, it came down to things like I love Motown. Absolutely love the history of the city. Obviously it's had gone through a lot of amazing times to then going to some awful times, and then just the fact that it was a pure underdog and everything like that. So it was mostly just down to music and the history of the city, and I like lions.
Yeah, I can imagine as well the music thing. I'm sure there's a few Eminem fans that have become Lions fans in the UK because of him. When you became a fan, do you remember what kind of era this was? What kind of players were rocking about when you first watched Lions games?
Yeah, so it's like 2006 when I picked the Lions, and obviously then you know wasn't able to kind of watch it really. Like didn't have games readily available to you, so uh you didn't watch it too much. But the first season of actually really watching them was they actually went 0-16, so they lost every single game. So the my fandom was kind of tested early on. But yeah, in terms of players, Dominican Sue is technically my favorite Lions player, because of the fact that I watched him for 4 or 5 years in Detroit, and I just like the bad guys kind of a thing and stuff like that. So then obviously Calvin Johnson came along as was there as well, and then Matt Stafford. So it was kind of like when they started turning it around, even though to start with they were like an 0-16 team, which need a lot of work done to them.
Well, no one can sit here and call you a glory hunter. I think that's one thing we can establish. I mean, you get that a lot, with Patriots fans from who are Patriots fans the last 10 years or so, or now you're seeing a lot. I'm seeing a lot of Chiefs fans become Chiefs fans because they're the best team. And I think if you support a team and the first year you watch them, they don't win a single game. I think that for me is yeah, no one can ever
Yeah.
accuse you of that. Now, you mentioned before, but you live in Motown and the city of Detroit. Now, you've been to Detroit a fair few times, and this includes going to the NFC divisional round game this year against the Rams. Just you've also I've stalked through social media and I've seen your work and how much you love the city and how much you've got accustomed and how much you've connected with the fan base and the people of Detroit. And just how would you describe that for people? There'll be a lot of people listening to this podcast who've never been to America, they've never been to the NFL game. So just explain to the audience for you how you found that in terms of meeting the American public, and meeting Lions fans and other NFL fans, and just getting involved in the community?
Yeah, so I mean, my first trip out to Detroit, I went alone, didn't really know anyone, and then I'd done two games there. Then one of them was in New York, so I went to away game in New York. Thankfully, they won both of them. And then the next season, I was just on Facebook and I put a message out on some group. Can't remember. I just said, "Oh, I'm coming over from London for a game," and basically, a guy who is now like literally a very very good friend. We speak every single day virtually. He goes, "Oh man, that's so cool." He goes, "Why don't you come and tailgate with us?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, that would be great." And it turned out to be probably the best decision I ever made because I was on the plane to from Vegas to San Francisco, and I actually was sitting next to Bob Quinn, who was the general manager's best friend, and he says, "Oh man, you're over from London. That's so cool." All that stuff. He goes, "Come with me, and we'll go straight to the stadium, and I'll get you sideline passes and stuff like that." I
Wow.
went, "Oh." I go, "Look," I go, "That's amazing." I go, "I'm going to the game next week in Detroit if you want to look after me there." And he goes, "No," he goes, "We're only here for this one." He goes, "Like it's kind of like now or never." I said, "Well, look, I'm a man of my word." So I go, "I promised this guy that I'm going to go and meet him." And anyway, met them, went tailgating, and every single person literally at that tailgate I've kept in contact with and just had an amazing friendship with them for so long. And but like I say, we keep in contact all the time. Every single day there's a message. And when you think the NFL has a long off season, from the end of February to the start of September, it's a long time. But I probably talk to some of these guys longer than I do some of my own friends. It's like, I've known for 30 odd years. So, the people are just amazing. And if you ever get the chance to go to Detroit, don't listen to the nonsense surrounding the city. There was, every time I've gone there over the years, it's continued to grow and get better, and it's a hell of a lot safer environment, than what it's made out to be.
Yeah, I've heard people say that. I mean, I've got a friend of the show I met for the first time actually in Detroit for the Thanksgiving game against the Bills a couple of years ago, which I'd probably say is the best game I've been to NFL game live. That was a hell of a game. He was saying the same thing. I mean, I was only there literally for 2 days, stayed with people and never got a chance to actually see the city. But from what people told me and what Charlie said to me at the time, that it gets a lot of bad rep, but actually it's a really nice city. So yeah, I think it's there's a lot of cities in the UK I think get that as well, but yeah, no, it's nice to see that it's maybe not as bad as people maybe make out. Um, Now, do you know roughly what your record is at games? Because I said before my Dolphins record is 0-5 at live games. James yesterday said his record he hadn't seen them win a game, and he'd been to I think 3 games or 4 games, Bears games. Do you know roughly what your record? How many times have you seen your team win and lose roughly?
Yeah, so I've got an industry record. I've seen them 26 times,
Wow.
two over in London, and the rest 24 of them are in the States, obviously. And it's 12 wins, 12 losses, and two ties, if you can believe that. I've been to two games where the Lions have actually tied, one in Arizona on the opening day of the season about 4 or 5 years ago, and the other was in Pittsburgh. Uh, about 2 years ago.
Now, fast forward to you mentioned there how much a fan you are. 26 times you've been to Detroit. That's amazing. That's really good effort. And obviously, you are a well-deserved international fan of the year. Now, how did that come about? How did you? Because James told his story yesterday. I want to know whether it's anything similar to his. But how did that come about? How did you get the call up about it and all of that? Tell us more.
Yeah, that's a good story. So I, you, it's so strange that a team that I've only been to 26 of their games, they actually know me, and I've been to like probably a good 1,000, 1,500 Arsenal games, and the club would not know me from Adam. So it's and like yet like one of the biggest organizations in the world kind of know you. When I was in New Orleans last year when we beat the Saints, I done a couple of videos, and for some reason the Lions saw them and picked them up and said, "Oh, hi, can we use those videos?" I was like, "Yeah, of course you can." I go, "As long as I get a follow back." And they were like, "Yeah, no problem." And then I'd explained I'd gone to at that point, I think that was my sixth game of the season or something like that. And they were like, "What, you travel all the way over?" I go, "Yeah." I go, "Do you live here?" And I was like, "No, I travel over from London, and everything like that." I go, "I'll be back for the playoffs." And they said, oh, if you're back for the playoffs, make sure you let us know and everything like that. And I said, they had asked me if I'd been like applied for the International Fan of the Year as well. I said, yeah. I go, I've done that, and that was kind of it. And then um, they said that they were coming over to do a piece on like their international fans and stuff like that. That they were going to Germany and stuff like that as well. And turned out that they weren't going to Germany. They were here to kind of do a piece on me, which is on um, uh, Instagram or Facebook. You'll be able to find it. And they awarded me the International Fan of the Year, so it was pretty cool to go around London. I was a bit embarrassed because during the video, I actually was losing my way around London, and I actually know around Detroit a bit better than I do London because you're never in the city centre as much. So it was. I had to rely on Google Maps a bit, but it was amazing, really great experience, and they're amazing people. And we keep in touch, and obviously saw them for the at the draft, and I'll be meeting up with them again in the off season because they're coming over as well. So yeah, it's great to have a connection and gain friends from it as well.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the best things about the NFL. I mean, I think just sport in general, that how much it brings people together. People always say about football, oh, it's just people kicking the ball, or it's just people in the UK like to say, oh, it's rugby for wimps when it comes to an American football. But for me, I think what sport does, I think just whether sport, whether it's those two sports, whether it's tennis, rugby, golf, etc., is that it does bring people together, it brings communities together, and I do love that story, and I do love the fact that the Lions do follow you. That must be a bit of a dream come true. And I
I
think
would
that.
say one thing. I would say one thing, like what you were saying there, is that I think in England we're so tribal with
Mhm.
our football teams. And over there, they obviously sit next to each other during the games and fans interact. Of course, you get the odd lunatic out there and everything like that. But, they're used to interacting with each other and kind of having that kind of banter, which doesn't go too far. And I would say one thing for sure is that anyone that was considering going over to watch a game in the States, definitely do it because it is a lot better than what it is even in the NFL UK or in Germany because it's kind of like the more pure product. But while what we have is great, that is a miles better thing, and they're so friendly. The people over there are so much more friendlier, and they'll take you in, and you won't regret that decision, and you'll definitely be booking your next trip soon after.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, someone myself who's been to all 30 stadiums, I can say that that is so, so true. I mean, first of all, you mentioned about the lunatic thing. I think I've been to a lot of football games and I see fights all the time. I even went to Liverpool Burnley in February, and there was we were right next to some the away fans, and there was someone got arrested, and so I've been to all 30 stadiums. I saw one fight in. I mean, I'm fully aware I might have been just in the right place at the right time, but I only saw one fight the entire time I was there, and that wasn't really a fight. That was more. I sort of caught the aftermath. I didn't even see the fight. I just saw the right at the end of it. So I think, yeah, and I think as well, the Americans just love bringing you in. I mean, I remember speaking of Detroit. I remember people who follow this podcast for years and years will know the story. But I was going from Buffalo to Detroit, and basically my Greyhound got cancelled without telling me. So I was stranded in Buffalo, had no way of getting to Detroit, and then through friends of friends of friends on Twitter, very loose link, I got invited to stay with six random people, spend 6 hours in the car with a complete stranger. Shout out to Tim if he's listening. And yeah, we just kept in contact. And one of the guys, David Caprosh, has been on this podcast numerous times. I've met up with him since as well. He was staying in that house in Detroit. I've stayed at his in Buffalo. Went to a Buffalo Bills game last year against Buccaneers. And this goes for many games. I mean, people are just so happy to bring you in. I remember watching Liverpool Brighton in a sports bar in Indianapolis, and the guy next to me, I have a ticket already, but he gave me his spare ticket. And again, I've kept in contact with him ever since. And literally, that's come from just watching an English football game in an American sports bar. So I think, I said it before in the last podcast that I do feel like maybe America loves Britain more than Brits do. I think sometimes, and I think they just love the fact that Brits come all the way over to watch their sport, and they love the NFL, they love their sport, and they love when anyone from any country comes over. So, yeah, amazing, amazing times. Now, the whole reason for the episode is the draft, and I want to get your thoughts on that because that must have been just a fantastic, fantastic moment for you. Just tell us more about what the whole experience was like for you in terms of getting there, getting handed the draft pick that you're reading out, and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? It after the Saturday, well, after it had all been and done and everything like that, you took the time to just sit down and think about it, and you were just like, that was unbelievable. That was like you kind of went through all the memories in your head, what happened, like the red carpet walk with all the press, and obviously being a Lion, you got the loudest roar. And you were just like in a bit of a daze, like a daydream at times. And obviously a lot of security, like there are at all NFL events, which you're like, oh, but are we ever going to get in here? But once you finally get in, and your friends are in the inner circle, that like I was very lucky that a lot of the people that were in there I knew, who were obviously season ticket holders, and you're just absolutely bouncing. You're right at the front of the stage. Like the commissioner is, I don't know, like 10, 15 feet maximum away from you. And you just the atmosphere was just amazing. I mean, just seeing Eminem come out as well at the start, and all the Detroit Lions players. It was absolutely electric. I mean, and day two was every bit as much fun because it's probably a little bit more looser. I decided to have a little drink there, and like you had more of a dance and stuff like that. So that was amazing, amazing fun too. The 2 rounds there. And then obviously on the Sunday, sorry, on the Saturday, because it feels like a Sunday when you're doing it. But on the Saturday, it's a little bit more low key. There's not much as much happening, but still a lot of fun. And then you get told, because some people were told they were doing a draft pick. I wasn't actually told that, and I was like, oh, this probably ain't happening because the Lions traded up a few times in the later rounds, and I thought, oh, do you know what, it's not happening. So I was kind of resigned to it. And then the guy comes out of nowhere and goes, "You ready to do a draft pick?" I'm like, "Oh my God, what?" And you get taken up there. You're in this kind of waiting room, which is so hot, by the way. It was ridiculous. You get the dry throat, and I wasn't nervous at all. And then I just started like feeling a little wobble in the legs. And I'm like, oh my God, this is about to happen. The Paul Rams guy ahead of me, who was from Mexico, he was really bricking it. So and I'm there like, going, you'll be fine, you'll be good, you'll be, and all that stuff. Anyway, they give you a card to tell you to go out. Thank God it was a name I could pronounce. I was worried about that. And you walk out and obviously get a massive roar, and it's like a daze. I mean, I don't know how the other lads done it. I had all these things in my head that I wanted to do, wanted to say, and it just went right away from what I wanted it to come out as. I really wanted to give it to the Bears. I really wanted to give it to the Packers, and the Vikings. And I got a bit of a brain fart halfway through, and it didn't come out, but it was still electric. It was absolutely electric. Every part of the weekend was electric, and I'm so lucky that, like the other boys as well, I'm sure they'll tell you that you feel how lucky you are to be there and to experience it, especially as close as we were. And everyone that was there was a great person as well. So like I got on really well with Daniel and James, and all the other lads. Basically, they were all great fun.
Yeah, it looks an amazing event, and I think that there's a lot of fans that will probably look at you with a bit of envy because there's some fans that we see it all the time where people on stage say the Make a Wish Foundation, their wish is to make a draft pick. 'Cause that's how sought after these things are, and how much people would love to do this. So the fact that you got to do this yourself must have been an incredible feeling, and I couldn't imagine what for me would be like. I would love that to happen one day. I'm not gonna lie, I would love that to happen if I can go on stage and announce Dolphins pick. That would just be something I would love. So if you are listening, International Family Year Committee, I am open to the idea if you want to bring me along. But yeah, no, unbelievable, and I'm sure there's a lot of fans who would love to see more of you as well. You are someone who's very big in the community. I mentioned before, you go to a lot of games. So just how can people find you on social media? Because you've got a lot of great Lions content on your Instagram, for example.
Yeah. It's the chairman Ryan is the handle. Yeah, if you want to follow. what I get up to. I mean, like most people now, I'm waiting for the schedule to come out next. I believe it's going to be next Thursday. That's normally always the second week in May, but it's Thursday in May. But yeah, I'll be planning my trip. That's normally pretty much decided by Friday morning. That's actually one of my favorite days of the year is planning that. Go, where can I go? What can I do? And it normally gets changed about 3 or 4 times, and then there's normally another trip added on there as well. So I'm hoping I've been to quite a few of the stadiums, but I'm trying to hit a couple of the AFC East ones. This not East, sorry, AFC ones in Indianapolis this year and Houston, which will obviously be fun because they've got a hell of a team brewing there. So and then on Instagram, it's mostly just Lions content on there. It's the London Lion Ryan. So sticking with the Lions theme there. So if you want to follow in, and if there's any Detroit Lions listeners, we've got a Facebook group called uh, Detroit Lions Fans UK One Pride Worldwide. Feel free to join that, and of course, anyone else who knows about the Roar of the Lions podcast, which I'm on not as regularly as I like to be, but the lads on there do an amazing job, and I highly recommend listening to those too.
So do give them a follow if you haven't already. Give them a follow on social media. Now you mentioned the schedule release just then. What's the target this year? Six again, or what kind of number are you looking at in terms of games that you want to go to this year?
So definitely, what I try to do every trip, I try to get in 2 games. So I try to go obviously on a Friday and then try and get like 2 games in on a Sunday. So it's going to be, I would say, 4 to 6, and then the playoffs, please God. So that's six, at least 4 to 6 regular season games. It all depends. A lot of them of the stadiums I've been to before. So Thanksgiving's always a good one. If we get an away game before Thanksgiving and then you've got a game on the Thursday, that's always what I try to do as well. So it just all depends on the schedule. Some years it's really good. Sometimes it works out nicely. Sometimes it's a bit of a pain, but it's out of your hands. So we'll just find out next week. But definitely 4 to 6, and then hopefully all the playoff games and bringing Lombardi back to Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, I like you. I always look forward to the schedule release, especially these days when they have these amazing sort of social media jobs for each team, these amazing release videos. And I always look forward to seeing which team has the best release video. And like you, I'll be looking at the schedule. Not as many games this year as maybe the last 2 years. I'm going to probably slow down a bit this year, getting a new place and all, getting a new house and all that. But I think I plan to either go game Miami, or we got games in Green Bay, Indianapolis, and Seattle's the one I want to do. Seattle's on a good time of year. I loved it when I went there for both the stadium and the city. So that's probably my aim, either Seattle or Miami, or maybe Indianapolis because I made friends there. So I think that's where I'm looking at. And of course, New York is always, we get that every year. So that's always one you can look at as well. So yeah, looking forward to that. And then finally, how confident are you of your chances of the Lions doing it? Because last year you made the NFC title game. You were so close to winning it, 17 points ahead. I don't like to, sorry to remind you of that. But for you, how much do you see it being likely that you guys are going to take that extra step and go one step further and make that game in New Orleans?
I think it's definitely got harder this year simply because the Bears have definitely improved. They've got a top 5 defense from last year, even though like their record might not have looked that like make you think that, but they obviously have a hell of a defense and they've definitely improved their offense. So hopefully they drafted another quarterback that's useless. I seriously doubt that is the case this time around. The Packers have definitely improved too. I think the Vikings are a strong team too. So I think the NFC North is going to be a really, really tough division. And I think it could be one of those divisions that actually 3 teams go to the playoffs in. So I think it's going to be, very difficult. But yes, I still see the Lions winning at least 11 games as it stands now, which will be enough for playoff football. Whether it's enough to win the division, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But and when we're in there, they have the experience from last year. They'll want to go a little bit further. Um, we brought in a few new defensive backs, which will definitely improve the team. And we're not far off. We just need, luck with injuries as most teams do, and I think we can be knocking on the door and maybe getting our first Super Bowl in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if it's not the Lions or the Packers or the Niners or Cowboys involved, then I mean, actually maybe the Eagles as well if they get back to their old selves. But I think
Mm.
there's definitely less of a big talented pool in the NFC compared to the AFC. I think the AFC's got such a massive range of, you've got the Texans coming in strong. The Bills are always going to be involved. Of course, the Chiefs, the Chargers now got Jim Harbaugh. And I think that, for the Lions fans, I think it's time to get excited because, yeah, I think you got, for me, I did an article on it today. The best draft pick, in my opinion, was Terry Arnold. I loved him out of college. I loved his college tape. And I think you got your biggest area of need. So and got the best player in that position as well. So I think personally, you guys should be very excited. But you never know. It'll probably once again it'll be Mahomes lifting Lombardi, probably beating the Niners and deja vu once again. But that is where we'll end the podcast for today. So once again, huge thank you to Lions International Fan of the Year, Ryan Fardon. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
No
Go
problem at all.
Lions.
Killer Lions, yeah. That is where we'll end the podcast. So you will see us tomorrow for our Packers episode with Daniel Hamburg. Looking forward to that one. In the meantime, take care.